Shalom, covenant keepers, children of Israel. You're listening to Awaken to Torah Ministries, where spirit and truth converge. We are a listener-supported ministry and ask that you prayerfully consider supporting this work. This ministry is focused on revealing the message of Torah as taught by our Jewish Messiah, Yeshua. Your donation will be used to further the ministry devoted to exposing the lies that we have inherited from our forefathers, as Jeremiah 16:19 clearly declares. You can contact us at 77690 South 46A Road, Stillwell, Oklahoma 74960, or join our mailing list at awakentotorah@gmail.com. We look forward to meeting you when we once again are sheltered by a cloud by day and on fire by night on our way to Jerusalem. Shalom Aleichem, and we'll see you there. All right, Shalom Aleichem, covenant keepers and children of Israel. Welcome to another teaching from Awaken to Torah Ministries. Today, the title of our message is Do Not Harden Your Heart Against Yahweh. And I said last month in a teaching that I did concerning biblical calendars that I would probably not do another teaching on it. That would be my last statement concerning the biblical calendar, or getting, the first month of the biblical calendar right. And that is true. However, and you can go watch that video for yourself, but I've had a lot of people in the last month come to me because they are now starting to look at Israel. They're looking at the land, they're looking at the agricultural cycle, and they're saying, hey, the wheat is already grown. Here we are, fixing to do Passover, and we're already starting, the wheat harvest. It doesn't make sense what's going on here. And I have been pointing them back to that video as well. But I felt this morning, I got up in Shabbat, that's the 20th of April, and I got up and was praying and seeking the Father, and he just kept impressing it on my heart that maybe I needed to do another short teaching. This whole teaching, I think, is 6 slides, including the intro slide and the 3 bullet point slide. So basically 4 slides full of scripture. But before we get started with that, I want to emphatically state that if you are on the Hillel 2 calendar, okay, meaning that you have made the personal choice that you are going to join with Judah and celebrate on whatever the Hillel 2 calendar states the feast days fall on, there is no condemnation coming from Awaken to Torah Ministries. Sorry. But those who know me know that also that I'm Jewish as well, and for many years I was on the Hillel 2 calendar. And about 30 years ago, 25 or 30 years ago, we sent teams to Israel, and we planted barley, and because the Father had began to reveal to us this calendar, this astronomically, agriculturally, biblically corrected calendar. And we see that through the writings of Philo and Josephus that this was quite possibly the calendar that they were on during those days when Yeshua himself was here walking the earth. And I personally make the statement all the time, Yeshua was not backwards, and he was not afraid to rebuke the rabbis. He was not afraid to rebuke the religious leaders of that day. And we see him going up to the feast, and we see him going even to the Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah. He was standing in Solomon's porch. We see him observing these things. But what we don't see, what the Brit Hadashah is absent in, is him rebuking them for being on a different calendar. And we know historically, through these historical writings, that the astronomically, biblically corrected calendar is the one that they were on in Yeshua's time. So that's why we made the choice to plant the barley in Israel, to observe that the following and to establish a calendar. And now, because of that, there is a great move in Jerusalem to bring this back to the Sanhedrin and move the entire nation of Israel, all Jews, back to this calendar. Now, granted, that hasn't happened yet, but it seems like every year we get closer and closer to that happening, and no more so than this year with the possible sacrifice of the red heifers and the Levitical priesthood being reestablished. I cannot see them staying on the Hillel 2 calendar, which they all admit is flawed. I cannot see them staying on that once the Levitical priesthood is reestablished. So we believe that this is the correct calendar. And I think that many Jews in Israel believe that this is the correct calendar too, and it is probably the calendar that we will move back to once the red heifers are sacrificed and once the feast cycle is being declared by the Levite in Jerusalem, which they are the only ones that have the authority and the right to declare that feast cycle to begin. But I want to make those things clear. So if you're on that Hillel 2 calendar and you're stating, hey, I believe that Judah has it right, and we're going to stay with Judah on this until it's declared by the priest and the calendar's changed, great. Okay, there's no condemnation coming from Awaken to Torah Ministries. In fact, being Jewish myself, on the 22nd, I will be celebrating or rejoicing with you. I won't be redoing Pesach because we did that last month. But I will, unless somebody wants to invite me. I'm just saying I'm not going to host a Seder myself. But if somebody wants to invite me, I'll absolutely show up and partake of it with you, because I don't believe that there's any wrong in it. But as I said, many people this from last month to this month has been coming and asking us, why so many people are on a different calendar this year. So that's why I felt like, the Father spoke to me this title this morning: do not harden your heart against Yahweh. And that's what I want people to realize, is there is a great move of deception. There is a deceiver that has gone forth amongst us in the Messianic movement. And we have all of these other calendars that are popping up and deceiving people. And it comes down to Yom Kippur. In my mind, that's where it comes down to. Because Yahweh is very specific when it comes to Yom Kippur. If anybody works on that day, that he will not only destroy you from among the people, but he will destroy you from himself. So you're not only getting put outside the gates of the city from your people, now Yahweh's removing you from his presence as well. So Yom Kippur, we need to have our calendar corrected, and we need to be on the right day. In my mind, and I think that I take the position that the astronomically, agriculturally, biblically corrected calendar is the right way to do that, and you'll see why. So if you see, I'm going to move out of the way here. If you see the calendar here, that's the feast days. There's when they begin, and then there's where they end. So that's for the astronomically and biblically corrected calendar. Okay. We may look at this calendar again as we go on through this teaching, but I want to jump over here to this screen, and that way I'm not really going to do the PowerPoint the way we normally do it. I'm going to let you just see my PowerPoint because it takes up the screen, and I need 3 screens to do what I'm going to do today. So without further ado, as you can see, normally you would just see this part of the screen, but today I'm not going to do the slideshow. I'm just going to go through the PowerPoint with you. Screen number 2 says, have you been deceived by people with an agenda? Number 2, the astronomically, agriculturally corrected biblical calendar. So we're going to show you how to define that. We've done that in other teachings, but it's always good to refresh our memories. And then number 3, the God of second chances. So we're going to show you how the calendar is so important that the Father gives us the opportunity to correct our calendar. And we'll show that clearly here in a minute. So Let's jump over here to this screen. If I can get it to, there we go. So the Great Deception. I always ask the question, do we rely on man's calculations or Yahweh's signs? And I take the stance that we always have to rely on Yahweh's signs. Genesis 1:14 says, and Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, that's the Hebrew word oath, and for seasons, that's the Hebrew word moed, and for days, yoms, and years. So when we look at those two signs, oath and moed, oath literally means a signal, a sign, a fixed point in time, something that is glaring and obvious. Okay, so that it says that he placed the stars, the sun, the moon, and the stars in the sky for that, for a fixed point, for us to have this fixed reference point to determine the very next thing, his moed. Moed in English it says season, so we think of summer, winter, spring, and fall. But in Hebrew, moed means an appointed time, or his festivals, his appointed days. And most people will say, well, there's 7 feasts of Yahweh. Well, no, there's 9. Actually, there's a lot more than 9 if you want to count every weekly Sabbath as a separate one. But we'll just say 9 because you have the weekly Sabbath, then you have the new moons, and then you have the 7 feast of Yahweh. Okay, so beginning with Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Feast of Weeks, Feast of Trumpets, Feast of Atonement, and then Sukkot is our final feast of the year. Sorry. Everybody likes to message me when I'm live. Normally I'd have my other screen up so you wouldn't see that. But anyways, just a little distraction there. Don't pay attention to the to the stuff going on in the background. But when we look at this moed, we have to rely on Yahweh's calculation and not man's calculations, because he is the one who determines his calendar. So let it be declared in the heavens and then verified in the earth. That's the stance that Awaken to Torah has always taken. That we want Yahweh to declare his calendar in the heavens, and then we will verify it through the agriculture on the earth. Okay. We see that being played out in Deuteronomy 16:1, when Yahweh says to observe the month of Abib. Okay. That word observe there, we've talked about it numerous times, is the Hebrew word shamar. It means to look narrowly for. And then this word month is the word chodesh, which can mean moon or month, either one. And if you know anything about Hebrew, because this word is used twice in the same thought process, it has to mean both. So one will mean moon and one will mean month. So if we were correctly to translate that, knowing proper Hebrew, it would say, look narrowly for the moon of Aviv, and keep the Pesach unto YHVH thy Elohim, for in the month of Abib, Yahweh thy Elohim brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. So we look narrowly for the moon, and the moon of Abib. So that is a very specific point in time. Exodus 9:31 says, and the flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was in the ear. That's that same word, Abib. Okay. And we're going to look at that definition here in just a second. And the flax was bolden, and that's the Hebrew word gibol, which means the bud of a flower. When you see a flowering plant starting to put on a ball on the end, it's putting on a gibol, a bolden flower. That's at some point a flower is going to break forth from that bowl. Okay, so again, the Hebrew word abib, it's from an unused root meaning to be tender, green. Okay, it doesn't mean it has to have 30% water or 90% water, and it has to be 60% in grain form. All of that stuff is made up, man minutia, to distract, to deceive, to pull people away from what the word actually says. The word actually says that it was the month of the Aviv. That means the month that things become green and tender. Okay. Now we rely on the barley because of Exodus 9:31. It specifically mentions the barley and the flax. Okay. So that's why we rely on that. Does it have to be barley? No, we don't take that stance. I mean, some people live like I live here in Oklahoma, and the first thing that becomes gibol or a beeb here is the dogwood. So the dogwood will start putting on flowers first thing, and as soon as I see those white flowers bursting forth, or the red buds, either one, see those red flowers bursting forth, I know, wow, it's the month of Abib. It's things are becoming gibol. Things are becoming green and tender. So that is the month that the Father calls the month of the Aviv. Okay. So when we realize that, then we have to see some other things. So I'm actually going to jump back to the main cam here because I want you to see a few things here. Let's see if I can bring it up. Okay. These pictures, this was last month. I want to give credit where credit is due. This is from Abib of God. You can look at them up on Facebook or on the internet. They do a very thorough job of going both north and south in Israel and taking pictures of the fields, taking pictures of the agriculture. So every year we can get a proper idea. They don't really make declarations. They only take pictures and then show them to us. So this first picture is clearly Gibol. Not only is it Gibol, these fields are putting on flowers, and this is the 10th of March, the 10th of March that this picture was taken. In fact, most of these pictures that I'm going to show you is the 10th of March. So let's look at another one. Again, these birds are bird swallows. That was what we would call them. They return as a spring migratory bird. When the earth is coming back alive, these birds will return and begin to nest at the cotel there in the wall. So really cool picture there. And then we have these trees. These trees are already budded and putting on leaves. And the Messiah said, learn the parable of the fig tree, that when the fig tree begins to put on its leaves, do you not know that summer is nigh? And clearly we see that on the 10th, the trees in Jerusalem are already putting on leaves as well. But let's continue to look at some more pictures. This is on the 10th as well. As you can see back here in the field, if you look back behind my head, let's see, right here, that field is already being harvested. And I'm going to show you some more pictures of that field being harvested in just a second. But I wanted you to see the stage of the grain on the 10th. Now this is the stage of the grain in the majority of these fields. On the 10th, when people like Deborah's date tree and other people made the declaration that no, we were going to have a 13th month this year. Clearly this is green in the ear. It's not even green, it's starting to turn brown. Okay, so it's way met the definition. So this was the 10th before we sighted the moon on the 11th of March. This picture was taken. So we determined that yes, the land had become Aviv, and when we sighted the sliver of that moon, it marked the beginning of the biblical year for us. But let's look at some more pictures. Really cool how green. I mean, that's the definitions, green and tender. And we see these trees with leaves on and fields totally ripe and some ready to be harvested here. Again, more fields in Jerusalem, green, ready to be harvested. Just gonna roll through some. Now this is a field in the northern part of Israel. Of course, it's going to become riper the southern part of Israel, not of course, the southern areas are going to become ripe before the northern areas because that's just the way that works. So this field is nearing the harvest. I think that was actually before the 10th, maybe the 5th that they were showing this field. There's another picture of flowers already on. So meeting the definition of gibol. Here's migratory birds again coming back into the I appreciate a beat God of pointing out all of these things. Flowering plants already putting flower on, and barley again harvested here. In fact, here it is being harvested, and this was on the 8th. I believe this picture was taken on the 8th of April, where they are already harvesting the barley. So we have to meet that definition of Abib, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. But I wanted to go through these pictures with you first, so there's no deception. You can see with your own eyes. You can go verify these pictures and the dates on these pictures with Abib of God and other people who are contributing to Abib of God. In fact, on the 8th, these last two pictures, actually, I'm going to show you 4 more pictures and then that'll be enough. Okay. So this picture here, this was on the 8th. That's already got grain in it. It is fully engulfed in grain at that point. I don't know how you could say that was not a bee, but Deborah and others are making the declaration that was not a bee. Here's more stalks of grain, and they're making up nonsense. Well, yeah, a whole omer of it had to be a bee, and none of that is true. Scripture doesn't declare any of that. That is just made up nonsense that people use to confuse people. And I've asked them, where's the scripture to support that? And none of them, not one of them, can present the scriptures to support that stance. When we look at the scriptures, though, I'm going to make a very clear point that is absolutely going to destroy those arguments here in just a second. The last 2 pictures I want you to see, though, is this picture here. Again, the olive trees are putting on leaves. That's the Messiah told us, learn the parable of the fig tree. Sorry, those are fig trees. And here's another picture. It's gibol. It is budded. It is it's fixing to break forth a leaf. And sorry, I'm going to do one more final picture, because this is a really cool picture. Some of them have already burst forth. Some of those gibol have already burst forth into leaves. So, all right, let's jump back over to the PowerPoint here, and we will go to the very next slide. The astronomically, agriculturally corrected biblical calendar. Okay, so this is how we determine the calendar. Exodus chapter 9, verses 23 through 25. Okay, it says, and Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven, and Yahweh sent thunder and hail, and the fire ran along the ground. Now, get that mental picture in your head that he sent thunder and hail, and fire was running along the ground. So anything that was growing up out of the ground would have been consumed by the fire. Okay, mingled with the hail, very grievous. Let me go down here. Very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt, since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every herb of the field, and brake every tree of the field. So this is, if it was grown up, if it remained in the field, then it was broke by the hail or destroyed by the hail. I mean, it smote every herb of the field. So if that herb had been grown up out of the earth, it would have smoted at that point. And he makes that point clearer here in Exodus 9:30 through 32. It says, "But as for thee and thy servants, I know that ye will not yet fear Yahweh Elohim." 31. "And the flax and the barley was smitten." During this great hail, the flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was Abib. Okay, the month of the Abib. So the barley was Abib, and the flax was Bolin, Gibbo. It was flowering in the ear. We just showed you picture after picture showing that the land was green and tender, and that it had the trees and other things had become Gibbo. They were fixing to put on flowers. But here's the defining point. But the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not grown up. The wheat and the rye had not burst forth out of the ground yet. We know that to be true because of the fire. If it had grown up out of the ground, the fire and the hail would have destroyed it the same way it had destroyed the barley and the flax. So right now, in the land, when they sighted the new moon, there was picture after picture after picture of the wheat already grown up and putting on heads when they sighted the moon 12 days ago. So clearly they missed this. They missed it by a month, because if the wheat and the barley is putting on heads already, you've missed it by a month. Because the point in time that the Father is talking about is the month of the Abib, when the barley and the flax would have been destroyed, but the wheat and the rye would not have been, because it had not been grown up and in the ear yet. So it's a very definitive point. The same way the sun, the moon, and the skies were put in the heavens to declare those things for us, in the same way we go out and we sight the new moon to begin the month, as Deuteronomy 16:1 says, to look narrowly for the month of Abib. So we look for that first sliver, because it is in the month of the Abib that Yahweh brought us out of Egypt by night, and it is also in that month that we celebrate the Pesach, the Passover. Okay, so let's keep going to the God of second chances, because here's where it gets interesting. A lot of these people that have been calling me over the last month going, "Hey, we've missed the calendar." I mean, we're seeing pictures all over Israel, of wheat being grown and them harvesting already, and why are we this late in the agricultural cycle? And I mean, all of these things that are being widely known now. They're not secretive. So people have been contacting Awaken the Torah asking us why that is. And the simple reason is because a bunch of Kirites convinced a bunch of Messianics that the land was not Aviv, even when their eyes told them something different. So they're relying on man more than they're relying on Yahweh. We cannot rely on man. I'm telling you, I would hope that if Awaken to Torah Ministries made the same declarations, that you would count us as liars as well. Okay? Because if the definition for Abib means to be tender and green, okay? Clearly the barley was tender and green when we sighted the new moon on the 11th of March. Now here we are a month later, and the wheat harvest is almost ready. So people are struggling with that. And these people like Deborah's Date Tree and others, I mentioned them specifically because this isn't the first time. And if you'll go back and you'll look at what Deborah declared last year, you'll see that she had to declare a 13th month this year because she got it wrong last year. And had she not declared which is really a 12th month for her, because it's not really a 13th month for her. It'd be a 12th month for her because of her original declaration last year. Put a 13th month on. And if she would have declared it, then there would have only been 11 months in her year. So there is all of these agenda type things behind it, the none being greater than Nehemiah and Deborah. Their family are Hasidic Jews, and they go off the Hillel 2 calendar, and they don't want to have all the tension in their homes and in their families of going on a different calendar. So even though we established this biblically corrected calendar, those people who are there and having family that are celebrating the feast on certain days, they have never, you can go back and look, they have never sided against the Hillel 2 calendar, even though every legitimate rabbi, the Sanhedrin, all admit that there are real problems with the Hillel 2 calendar. So I don't have a problem if somebody is saying, no, I'm on the Hillel 2 calendar. Great. We can go with that. But when you're deceiving people and you're telling them, no, we're on the sighted new moon biblically corrected calendar, we're on that calendar, and then you're declaring something different, that's where we have to do an open rebuke. We have to show those people as liars and frauds. And I have friends, they're probably not my friends now because I have taken such a hard stance this year that they were deceived, and some of them already booked their festival sites for Sukkot, and have those dates laid in because they predicted them using a computer program rather than the way Yahweh told us to. He told us to observe. So they didn't observe. They got online, they looked at some computer generated thing telling them when the vernal equinox was going to go, and they made all these false predictions, and now they're a month behind. And rather than admit, hey, we're a month behind and we're going to have to go off the Hillel 2 calendar this year because we pre-predicted our dates, they're lying to people and saying, no, these are the dates. This is the correct calendar, which I don't know why they can't just admit and say, no, we got it wrong this year, so we're going to have to go off the Hillel 2 calendar. There's no shame in that. Where the shame is when you're lying and trying to convince people that you're right when you know that you're wrong. And the evidence that we presented here today 100% proves them wrong. Okay, that without a doubt proves them wrong. So anybody making those declarations, they are intentionally deceiving people. That's just the truth of it. And I know making a hardline stance like that is bound to win me numerous friends. I say that facetiously, of course, but that's the stance that we have to take. It's not that they're going off the Hillel 2 calendar that's the problem. It's the deception behind it, because some people really want to, they really desire to be on this biblically corrected calendar. And rather than saying, oh, we got it wrong when we declared it not avived, they'll just dig their heels in and say, nope, we're right. And I mean, of course, scripture says that every man is right in his own eyes. But we serve an Elohim of second chances. So let's read this. Numbers 9, 1 through 7. And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh spake unto Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt. So this is the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, let the children of Israel also keep the Pesach at its appointed season. In the 14th day of this month at evening shall you keep it in its appointed season, according to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof, shall you keep it. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Pesach. And they kept the Pesach in the 14th day of the first month at even in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that YHVH commanded Moshe. So did the children of Israel. And there were certain men, now here's start paying attention really close here. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Pesach, meaning that they were unclean and couldn't keep Pesach on that day. And they came before Moshe and before Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back? Why can't we keep the Passover? I mean, we're going to have to stand, not keep the Passover. I don't want to get a judgment for this, okay? I mean, basically, this is what they're saying. We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back? That we may not offer an offering to YHVH in his appointed season among the children of Israel. Numbers 9:18 through 14. This is our last slide. And Moshe said unto them, Stand still, and I will hear what YHVH will command concerning you. And YHVH spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep Pesach unto Yahweh. Okay, so most of these people don't live in the land. So they are in a journey that is far off. Okay, so they meet this definition. Okay, or be in a journey afar off, yet ye shall keep the Pesach unto YHVH. The 14th day of the second month at even, they shall keep it and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. So now the 22nd of this month meets this definition. And that's the way it always works out. I've never seen the Hillel calendar be a month early, but it has been a month late a few times in the last 30 years. So there have been years that I believe that they did it on the second month and not on the first month. Okay. So I'm going to read verse 11 again. The 14th day of the second month at evening, you shall keep it and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any bone of it, according to all the ordinances of the Pesach, they shall keep it. So exactly the same way you would have kept it on the 14th of the first month. Now you're going to do the same thing the 14th of the second month. This is Yahweh giving us, his children, the ability to not miss the Pesach because we got the agricultural sign wrong. We were on a journey. It snuck up on us. We didn't realize that everything was going to become Aviv in the next 10 days and be ready to start harvesting. For whatever reason, we were zoned out. The Father gives us a chance here to reset our calendar, okay? But we can't reset it and say, no, it's month 1. No, you're still doing the Pesach. You're just doing it in month 2, and you're not wrong in doing it in month 2 because Yahweh makes a provision for you to do so right here in this passage of Scripture. Verse 14, and if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and actually, I'm going to go back to 13. But the man that is clean and is not on a journey. So if you're clean and not on a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, even the same shall be cut off from among his people. So if you refuse to, if you're clean, you're not on a Sabbath, or you're not on a journey, meaning you haven't got caught unaware. You're understanding, but because you want to do something else, you're saying, I'm not going to keep the first one. I'm just going to keep the second one. Okay. Then you're going to be cut off. You're supposed to be put outside the camp for that entire month, because you did not offer an offering to YHVH in his appointed season and in his appointed time. Okay. Let's read that again. But the man that is clean and is not in a journey and forbeareth to keep the Pesach, even the same shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of YHVH into his appointed season, that man shall bear his sin. So he's saying it's a sin to do this. Okay. And if a stranger shall sorry, my tongue tied. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Pesach unto YHVH, according to the ordinances of Pesach, and according to the manner thereof, so shall he do. You shall have no ordinance, you shall have one ordinance, both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land. Okay, so just because you are a Gentile does not absolve you, or you don't count yourself among Israelites, does not absolve you from keeping it in the first month if you're serving the God of Israel. Okay, you have to pay attention to these things as well. And that's our last slide. So I'm going to go back to the main cam here. When we look at these things, the Father has given us the opportunity and made provision for us to be able to reset our calendar. If we felt like the agricultural signs were not met in the first month, and we just said, okay, I don't believe that this is the first month. Let's do it. Let's declare it not to be the first month. But then you find signs like the wheat being grown and the other things that I pointed out in this video, and you're like, oh man, my brain was on a journey. I did not. I missed this whole thing. I for whatever reason, whether I was unclean or just not seeing the signs that the Father had declared, meaning that you were on a journey. When that second month comes around, he gives you the opportunity to reset your calendar. Okay, so for those of you that are watching this and you're looking at the land and you're seeing, the wheat about to be harvested, and forget the barley. I mean, by the time first fruits comes around, in the Hillel 2 feast cycle, they will be ready to start the first harvesting of wheat. We're not talking about barley anymore. We're not talking about flax. We're not talking about Abib. We're not talking about Gibbo. We are talking about we missed the whole first harvest. So how can we say that we are first fruits and we're offering the first fruits of the land when we are going to the second harvest? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit with the biblically corrected calendar. That's why there is such a move in Israel right now to go back to the biblically or the astronomically, agriculturally, biblically corrected calendar. That's why most messianics are going on this calendar. But some of these larger feast sites that have to book 2 and 3 years out, they calculated these things, and they're going, they're using people like Deborah's date tree and others to support their stance that they're correct, rather than just saying, hey, we got it wrong. We have to book these sites, 2 or 3 years out. This year we're going to have to go off the Hillel 2 calendar because we already had the site book. Okay, just be honest. It's the deception. It's the deception that you're not just stumbling yourself. You saw what happened here, and the Father made that clear in this verse 13. But the man that is clean and is not on a journey and forbeareth to keep the Pesach, the same shall be cut off from among his people. But now you're causing other people to stumble as well because you refuse to admit your lie. Now, if you refuse to do it altogether, then you'll bear your own sin. And Yahweh declared that, not me. I know that upsets people. I know people don't like hearing that. Nobody likes their sin being exposed. I don't like it. I mean, it's very uncomfortable. And many times I have had to publicly say, I missed it. I got this wrong. I hate when I have to do that, but I would rather do that than being in opposition to Yahweh. I would rather do that than harden my heart against him. So when you contemplate this teaching, when you really start thinking about it, don't harden your heart against Yahweh. Some of you, I know, watch these videos just because you don't like me and you're looking for something to rail on me against. Okay, that's all right. But understand, what I've told you here today is not my words. It's just truth. It is the truth contained in Scripture. So now it is, the onus is on you to prove or disprove what's been presented to you as truth or not. And I believe that when you look at all of the evidence that's been placed before you today, you have no other but to declare that this Pesach in 2 days will be the Pesach of the 14th day of the second month and not the first month. And that will reset your calendar, making you be on Yom Kippur when you're supposed to be on Yom Kippur, because that's the day. That's the day that you don't just get cut off from your people. That's the day that if you work on that day, you get cut off from Yahweh. So it's so important to look at the evidence, do what Yahweh has told you to do. So thank you for joining us today on Awaken to Torah. I hope this teaching has helped you, blessed you, and given you the confidence to reset your calendars. Okay. We love you, but not as much as Yahweh does. And we'll see you next time on Awaken to Torah. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, covenant keepers, children of Israel. You're listening to Awaken to Torah Ministries, where spirit and truth converge. We are a listener-supported ministry and ask that you prayerfully consider supporting this work. This ministry is focused on revealing the message of Torah as taught by our Jewish Messiah, Yeshua. Your donation will be used to further the ministry devoted to exposing the lies that we have inherited from our forefathers, as Jeremiah 16:19 clearly declares. You can contact us at 77690 South 4680 Road, Stillwell, Oklahoma 74960, or join our mailing list at awakentotorah@gmail.com. We look forward to meeting you when we once again are sheltered by a cloud by day and on fire by night, on our way to Jerusalem. Shalom Aleichem, and we'll see you there.